No one can do it better. No one can do it better. No one can do it better. Here he is, the poet.
quarter.
Take a look at it. You've got the new player over there to play. That's Otis McKinney. Young man from Colorado. Hill goes in to the post, breaks the back out. Really good defensive try. And this young man is one of the best players in football right now. The outside position, Tony Hill. And he's only in his second year. Scary.
Protection good. Pattern excellent. Pass on target. 7-0. Cowboys lead. Here's our buddy.
Westwood Ray.
That horse is going to throw him one day. 7-0. Comeback team. 21-19. Vikings. Who are in a strange position this year of chasing the Packers. Here's the blitz. Looking for Tony Hill.
Giants came with the blitz, and Tony Hill was running, and Roger Staubach stayed in there. Patrick, you want to see a quarterback know he's going to get hit. There's Tyson going to hit him. Brian Kelly, perfect throw, and Hill has to beat to the corner.
There will be those who criticize Ray Rhodes. Look at Leroy, that's a giant pennant that he's jumping up and down on. I started to say there'll be those who criticize Ray Rhodes, but when you come with a blitz like that and you get caught in the blitz, that's a tough job, Tom.
Especially on a fast track like this.
And with a guy coming at you like Tony Hill, Hill sets the end. Is successful with his field goal with his extra point attempt. It is Dallas 21, Giants 3, and 7:19 left to play third quarter.
Tough mistake. Can the Cowboys capitalize? Tony Hill, touchdown pass on the flea flicker. Lindsay, when they ran this play with Drew Pearson, but off of this, he could throw it back to Staubach, and Tony Hill is beating everybody. He's all alone, 37 yards, and we're going to have a tie ball game if the extra point is converted. Here it is again. Staubach from Pearson, and he just lets it go. Roger Worley is trying to cover Tony Hill, and Hill was too much. So now a conversion attempt coming, which if good will tie the score. Raphael Septian will be kicking. Charlie Waters holding for the Cowboys. Waters puts it down. Septian boots it up. It's good. And the score is tied. As they come back up the field, it is the St. Louis Cardinals 14, the Dallas Cowboys 14, and we have 4 minutes, 18 seconds left to play in the third quarter.
So Bud Wilkins had mentioned in his release, please stay away from mistakes. And that mistake on the punt cost him 6. Dallas comes right back, throws the flea flicker, and Staubach spots Tony Hill all by himself with a 3-point conversion. They win him back. Second down here.
Tony Hill touchdown. Tony Hill for the touchdown from Staubach.
Somebody blew the coverage there on Tony Hill. There wasn't anybody covering Tony Hill. Staubach almost slipped down. They had a safety blitz on. Kenny Stone was going after the quarterback. Nobody covered Tony Hill. Second touchdown reception of the day. He caught 2 touchdown passes last week against the New York Giants.
And with a minute 17 seconds left to play in the third quarter, the Cowboys are up front for the first time today. They have a conversion attempt coming. It's Charlie Waters holding for Raphael Septian. Septian boots it, and it's good. So as they come back up the field now, the Dallas Cowboys are out in front by a score of 21-14 with a minute 17 remaining to be played in the third quarter.
Got him moving now. Two big plays. Of course, that play going for a nice chunky yardage and putting him on the 40-yard line. Let's pass out a little few plaudits to the defense of the Cowboys, too. They've only given up 2 third-quarter touchdowns, and they've held New England relatively in check during the third quarter of this game, which is almost over. 2:09 left.
From the 40-yard line, first down for Dallas. Dorsett. Oh, watch this one. Gonna go long, and they have Hill wide open. Touchdown. The staid, cool, collected Landry, an atypical play. A little flea flicker.
He's not afraid to go to the grab bag every now and again, too. Right here. Hands off to Dorsett. The old flea flicker. Flips it back. Look, all the time in the world. Hill all alone. Tim Fox running for everything he's worth. But Hill able to back his way into the end zone. Touchdown.
Now, Septien trying to tie it out of Waters' hole. He just did squeeze that one inside the right upright. And a flag is down.
We got a penalty here on the kick.
Kick is good. They'll penalize New England unsportsmanlike conduct on the ensuing kickoff. So a new game in Irving's Texas Stadium. Tony Hill's touchdown has tied it at 10.
Johnson's come on to replace Dupree. They have the fleet wide receivers in again. It's the shotgun on 3rd and 9. And a big rush is on. He lets it go. Tony Hill at the 20. He's in. Touchdown, Tony Hill.
Okay, Kurt. That was a blitz. They've been burned twice on blitzes. That was no exception. Strawback was the hero on both occasions. You see Tony Hill on Donnie Shell. He's all alone with him all over the field. Strawback threw the ball before Tony Hill even made his break. He was forced to. They communicated perfectly, and the score is almost tied. One kick will do it.
And this pass comes as time ran out in the first period. He could really tightrope that sideline, Tony Hill, a second-year player. He came so fast that they traded Golden Richards on to the Bears to make way for Hill, who's going to be a great pro star.
Mel Blount, who was deeper than Tony Hill, had his back to the quarterback, playing man-to-man, corralling his receiver. Never did see Hill until he went by him into the end zone. It's survival time when you get one-on-one with some guy and you're in a blitz situation.
Septien only missed 1 point out of 47. Charlie Waters will hold. It is a tie at the end of the first period. And what a first quarter here in Super Bowl number 13. We'll be back with the second quarter of today's game after these messages from your local station.
Too late. He has lost nothing. Oh, what a great throw that was. Pearson now has 5 catches for 99 yards. First down from the 30-yard line. Juan Springs, he's going to throw. He's a left-hander. Wide open. Tony Hill. Touchdown. I didn't know that Springs was left-handed, and I'm not sure that St. Louis knew that. Maybe he isn't. All I know, he threw a pretty good spiral, and he did what you should do on running passes like that. He threw it early. He didn't allow the defense time to recover and perhaps come over and knock it away. Look at Tony Hill. That's the last person he thought he was going to get a ball from. Here it is from the eye, sprint out left, takes a couple of good steps. Now watch him. He's going to project this baby and throw it. Rafferty gives him a little time. Not a bad spiral. Tom Landry may have called a pretty good play.
On second down, Staubach faces a blitz and has time and goes deep. Hill and got him. Touchdown, Dallas. Back over center. That's right. All right. Got us a good first down in there.
Well, they got that straight.
Yeah. I tell you, that was a good hold by Laidlaw because he was hit by Bolton. Bolton wants a Patriot, another one who's come on here for Cleveland.
Ball just short of the 48-yard line, the Cleveland Browns. Drew Pearson, 88 in motion. Roger flipped back to the left, tries to get single coverage. He's got it. There you go. That's Tony Hill, and we're going to have a ball game tonight, so don't go away. Tony Hill scores once again his 4th of the year, and he's having a super season, Don.
You can count on it. Well, when you see this on the replay, and you'll see what Tony Hill did. Watch it from the end zone, Don.
Little slide roll, you see him hiding there behind Fitzgerald, the center. Quick little fake one way.
Yeah, and on the other side, which we really didn't quite see, Hill gave him an outside fake move right down the middle and had him beat by about 5 or 6 yards. This is a guy that, of course, Landry's been talking about since he's been there. He thinks he's one of the most unique receivers he's ever seen come into the league, based on basically one talent, the ability to adjust under a long ball. He has that ability to move like that center fielder.
Raphael Septian on for the conversion for Dallas. Well, and unlike Cockcroft, Septian puts his first attempt through the crossbars. 20-7, Cleveland over Dallas, but you better hang around.
Do better.
As I was saying about Jim LeClaire, he is one tough cookie in the middle.
3rd down and 7 now for Dallas. So as Anderson had a big 3rd down play a moment ago and was intercepted, Staubach has one now. Looking for the quick pop, it wasn't there. Now throws it over the middle. Touchdown to Tony Hill. Here you'll see the play again. And Tony Hill is at least the 3rd receiver in the receiver progression for Roger Staubach. He looks everywhere. And once again hit his rifle, flat rifle. And Tony Hill can take some abuse because Marvin Cobb hit him right in the chest and he hung onto the football. And he caught that football right between Cobb and Bo Harris, the linebacker. They appear to have excellent coverage, but there is no coverage on a pass like that by Staubach.
Agreed.
He couldn't have thrown it any better. Septian to make it 31 for Dallas, and he does. Now the Cowboys can feel comfortable, and they have rebounded very well.
The best in the game. 6 straight Pro Bowls. Jack Youngblood confused by that option. There was a gain of 4. It'll be 2nd down and 6. The ball at the 18-yard line.
Here they come.
Let's again. He's got a man open. Tony Hill.
Oh, that is money.
Pretty. First time they worked on number 27, Pat Thomas, but Fran mentioned before. When you go with the blitz, you've got to cover man for man. And with Tony Hill and Drew Pearson on the flanks, well, you can forget it if you don't pressure the quarterback.
Well, he could not draw that one up any better than it was.
Here it is from the end zone. Here's Roger back. They come with the blitz again. Again, they didn't get there with the blitz. Tony Hill, can't do it.
Oh, he put a good move on Thomas, too. He did that inside, gave an inside fake. We'll see it again here, Fran.
Well, he had some good moves and a lot of speed to go with it.
You know, it was just a kind of that little slide into the inside, and he came back out and never broke his stride. He does have the good speed.
And the
Pass to Walter Payton.
Cowboys face a 3rd and 6, and they have their receiving core in now.
Dorsett goes out. Wide to the left comes Butch Johnson. Wide right, Drew Pearson. And the rest of the ones that can catch it.
Drew Pearson hasn't caught a pass yet, has he?
Not yet.
No one can do it better. No one can do it better.
just down number 7 for Tony Hill. And catch number 31. Roger straight drop back, both receivers running the deep sideline into the end zone. He just ran by Lee Nelson, who was the upback, supposed to take the inside away. Where did Roger Williams go? I didn't see the cornerback.
He must have been man-to-man on somebody else.
Yeah, but never blushing hard like a criminal. I'm subliminal.
Operating on that pattern. Raphael stepped in with Danny White holding.
Unmistakably so.
Cowboys lead the Cardinals 16-6.
Then you know. It's all a matter of setting the date for America's most complete artist. But wait, make sure
from behind
You
the
keep
St.
the facts
Louis
in
defense.
mind.
Remember, you
Don't
don't
mess
have
with the
much
great,
time to
cause
put
the dagger
pressure
like a
on.
nine with a
So
voice.
now Rogers
Telling you the
throwing
bullet's
double
direction.
scrimmage stuff.
I'm talking murder, but that's
Tony
another
makes sure he gets
section. I
3
need to
feet down.
explain by keeping my composure. Never joking a sucker when you know
Tony
you're nothing but a villain. And that you're
And
killing
Dallas
so
moving
easy
the football
fear.
on the ground. They came into tonight's game. That's what they said they wanted to do. They're very open about it. They have not been happy with their ground game.
Got it together so clever, no one
First
can
2
sell.
attempts have been
Remember this
successful
for
attempts.
Alpha.
Second down and 2. Drew Pearson in motion. Number 88. Drawback. Play action fake. Looking for Tony Hill. He's wide open. That's down. Point. Tony Hill.
Knowledge is
Sprinting
cheap,
past the
and
zone.
hard work
Touchdown.
is the
Dallas.
feat.
Third
For
play
me
of the
to be
ball
the
game.
threat at the start and remain to be a threat. Till the opposition is
Roger.
warm, taking the throne as a
Roger.
song. 'Cause I was born with instincts to tell.
One of the things you always make this go, if you run 2 good runs right before them, set up, had time to throw, had a little motion move by Pearson. You saw Hill come down and go straight to the middle. Nothing really fancy, but you see Pearson coming in behind him. Okay, he just flew right past number 22, Bernard Wilson. He did get over there in time. Will Hill, he did it again. He was looking for help. Eagle defender from his safety. Hill with a blazing speed with 5 touchdowns.
I knew it from introduction. Smooth
Holder,
lyrical
Danny
dab,
White.
and I do the conducting. Dropping on a rhythm. Something basic, but new to the
And Dallas.
masses. It's like I'm starting classic. Better
7-0.
understand the
3 plays.
direction.
The Cowboys
in which
on
I'm
the
going.
scoreboard.
In fact, when I'm
Tom
flowing, the
Landry.
news is a constant
Looking
change.
for Billy Joe
From one minute to
Did
the
wrong.
next.
We'll
I'm
be back
different
in a
'cause I
moment.
always show flex. And that's essential. That's why I got it together to the letter. And
Here in Irving. It has been all Eagle football game. Here in the second half.
I need to make it understood. The DOC is not a hook, not at all. Though I carry a weapon when I'm stepping, I'm not a
Second down,
murderer.
about
Not in the
14,
sense of
ball
you're a custom. My
25
bio is
yard
the
line.
sense of what's up and smoothly bust them. Opposition is taken, and that's a quote from the doc and the doctor. Cause you're saying no
Tony
joke,
Hill
so
should
I
be
smile. Here's the
Tony
outcome.
Hill,
Your teeth are gone, your mouth
touchdown
is
for the
numb.
night.
Tony
He
is
is
back.
ninth of
Unless
the
you're willing
season.
to risk murder by Mike.
And it
Cause when
comes
they're
from
killing you,
75 yards
we'll
out.
rewind for caution. Show
Don't
me
go away.
one. My giant
That's why the
Project
Cowboys
Born.
so
Capable of
explosive
any
in
and
the
every.
breakthrough
So I
in
get
any
happy
stage of the game.
when introduced to a medley.
that.
Bernard Wilson was trying to stay with
I had to hook up
Tony
with the
Hill.
boy from
He wasn't
Compton.
close.
Searched
That
and
was
found
not
the
a Hail
sound, then
Mary
accepted
pass.
the
No, that
job.
was
I'm making
accurate.
LA well
Simple
respected.
cornerback
Effects with the help
to
of a
the
gang.
receiver.
That's
It's
ruthless
the
beast
second
of
time
armies
tonight
as
that
I
I've
do
seen
what
really
I
a
mean.
receiver
It's
wide
Rusty
open.
Ren is in the
And,
house.
again,
Ice
both
Cube
times it was
definitely
Tony
in the
Hill.
house.
And they just hauled off and fell down as far as you can.
And
Hill
Easy
happened
stupid
to be
chilling
down
'cause
there.
he knows
Once he
show.
gets
No
the
matter
ball,
who back, I'll be the
the
GOAT
action
forever by kicking lyrics so clever that
Tony Hill's longest reception ever. How'd you know that?
There will be longer.
Right up. No, it is not.
Raphael, Septien. Tony Hill, 6 receptions on the night, 193 yards. There were 9 TDs on the season. 2 tonight. Don't go
time is
away.
taken to dedicate peace to the homeboys. My homie Leroy, MC Ren, Ice Cube, Easy E, DJ Yellow, Fresh J,
No wonder that they wind up with
MC
not enough
Smooth,
for
my
too many
homie
people on the
T-Lo.
field. Time. Wilson now
and of
goes
course,
out.
without a doubt,
And I
the
think
one
they
and
have the
only,
correct contingent there on second
my
down.
DJ
Goal
Dr.
for the game.
DRE, most definitely in the house. Got 11. Peace to those homies, and I'm out of
Novak
here.
lines up under center this time with Springs and Pearson behind him.
No one can do it.
Throws. And don't forget either that Washington still has 2 timeouts left.
This Dallas team in the other end zone now. Nobody wants to go to Philadelphia.
But you gotta go. passing 72 yards, rushing 65 yards, a total of 137. Tony Dorsett has carried the ball 7 times for 34 yards. Danny White, the quarterback, 2 for 4, 25. Denver leading 17-0 in the second quarter. 8 minutes, 19 seconds left to play in the second quarter. The long pass. Tony Hill. He's got a touchdown for Tony Hill.
What a great catch. Tremendous catch. Perfectly thrown pass. Perfectly thrown pass. Pretty good coverage that time by Steve Foley. With Dorsett just got set in time. Just lays it out, a go pattern. Watch the adjustment he makes back over his outside shoulder. Just looks it in, gets his feet down. Touchdown Dallas.
A 36-yard pass play. Danny White to Tony Hill. But the Cowboys on the scoreboard, they have a conversion attempt coming now. Charlie Waters signaling he wants one more man on the field, and he's getting him.
No one can do it.
It is Rafael Septien, of course, to attempt the conversion. With Waters and Sep holding. Septien boots, and it's good. So the score now is the Denver Broncos 17 and the Dallas Cowboys 7. In Denver, the Cowboys have the ball first and 10. They have it at Denver's 23-yard line. We have 1 minute, 28 seconds left to play in the game. The Denver Broncos leading the Cowboys 38-13. Danny White has quarterback. Cowboys all day long. White is 17 for 31, 244 yards. He's in the shotgun. Going long to the end zone to Tony Hill, and touchdown. Tony Hill took it deep in the end zone for the touchdown. A 23-yarder. So the Dallas Cowboys have scored here in the last 2 minutes of the ball game.
They split the zone that time. Got right in the seam of the zone. Good protection.
No one can do it better.
Not a big rush. Everybody playing soft this time. You see him, he just split it, got his feet down right in between the defenders.
It's 38-19 now. It's conversion attempt coming.
No one can do it better.
Rafael Septien with Charlie Waters holding.
No one can do it better.
So it is now the Denver Broncos 38 and the Dallas Cowboys 20 with 1 minute 22 seconds left to play in the game.
Don't seem much in his hand though. We tried that earlier, didn't we? Not much there.
Just a very small little bandage. Tony Dorsett will be the deep back. They get through. Now Drew Pearson moves back deep, but he will come. You can see Danny White's bandage. Here comes Pearson on his middle finger left hand. White going for the punt to Hill. Got it. Dallas touchdown. He was open for a long time. Very
receivers that are reluctant to go over the middle, they can do it now. Plus the pass protection, the offensive line, they can extend their arms, so the advantage has been to the offense. And now the coaches are doing something about it.
Second down, 2. Cowboys at their 41. White throwing on 2nd and 2. And he lets it go. Tony Hill. Touchdown. With the extra point tries, it took the Cowboys 2 plays to get the touchdown back. Kick is good. And it's a 21-17 football game. 6 minutes left to play in the half. This could be the ball game right here. 4th down and 5. Cowboys at the Cardinals 28. They have to get at least the first down to keep this drive going.
Pressure, fires it up, puts it right on the number, and Hill just outstriding the injured Keith Simpson. He had no chance on it. Good throw, and the thrill. Tony Hill with a touchdown. Drive from point by Raphael Septien. Charlie Waters to hold. And the Cowboys have a 7-point lead. Timeout here at Texas Stadium.
Dallas tonight does not forget any accuracy for the future. Not with Landry, it doesn't. 3rd down and 10. Anyway, out of the shotgun, the Rams will just be real. Tony Hill wide open, and he holds on to the Cowboys on the scoreboard. No flags down there. What a beautiful move Tony Hill put on over on the left side. Rod Perry totally turned around. Tony Hill took it in. Frank, that's an example of what I mentioned just a moment ago.
his ability to adjust to wherever the ball is thrown. And as you know, by playing receiver, that's really not easy to do. This is what the Cowboys call a corner route or a dig out. You see the ball coming back, he caught it over the other shoulder. You see when Tony Hill looked back as if he were going to take it over one shoulder, Rod Perry looked back, and when Rod Perry looked back, Tony Hill broke it to the outside, and Perry lost control of it. I think he's one of the best players playing today. He really is. Except the odds of conversion. There will be no shutout. Charlie Waters places the ball down. Up the end, drills it to the upright. Danny White just hit for his 24th touchdown of the season. We'll be back in Anaheim in a moment.
Oh, wait, Harrison is playing for Carl Harrison.
He has moved to the other side. Harrison was shaken up earlier, so was Charlie Smith. As Danny White drops. With a lot of time, he's going with Tony Hill, and he's got his touchdown.
That's the 8th touchdown catch for Tony Hill. And the pass blocking was out of sight, and Danny White really had his feet set.
And Tony Hill really clobbered one of our cameramen. Watch him hit the cameraman as he goes out of the end zone.
He's running a fly, a straight, or a nine, whatever you call it. Look, as Big Bud Harrison gets caught inside. Scott picks up on him too, all the time in the world, and this ball is right on. Herman Edwards is fairly close. This is a perfect touchdown pass, catch, and as you say, then run into the cameraman.
It was not one of our cameramen, but he does seem to be okay. Again, the Waters holding. 13-0 Dallas. The Cowboys have taken a 2-touchdown lead in the opening seconds of the second quarter. 14-0 for the team of Landry. Yep. First down. Line of scrimmage now, the 22 perhaps. Washington and Chicago, the Redskins looking for their first victory would appear to have it. Troubles in Chicago. As Washington leads 24-0. One step back. That's a dangerous one. Number 33, 20 set. Pearson goes to motion. Out and through. He's going to throw wide open and Tony Hill.
I'll tell you, whatever it takes, Pat, that's the second time that we've seen a wide receiver throw in this game. The 49ers did it once, now they do it. Now watch here, we'll see the motion. We'll see come out here, now watch White. He comes back, like it's a screen out here, and we see Pearson stop. He's looking for Hill. He finds him in the end zone. He's deep for a touchdown. Ooh, that was a great catch. That's not a bad throw by a wide receiver. You know, they have a tough time getting that ball out there sometimes.
And don't forget, though, that Drew Pearson was a quarterback in college at Tulsa, as was Sullivan at Tampa.
That's right. We used to have a tough time throwing those things when they wore stickum. We used to practice out all week and try and do it in the game. We couldn't throw it because they had stickum on.
Raphael set the end with Charlie Waters holding. And Dallas tightens things up just a bit as their first offensive moves of the day. 49ers, however, still lead 24-7 with 3:59 left in the first half. Looks like a wide receiver. Really does.
38-yard line, the Cowboys leading 19-10. 5:30 remaining in the second quarter. White up on top. Tony Hill wide open. Watch out! Watch out! Tony Hill's gone. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. George Andrews missed the tackle, and Tony Hill goes 63 yards and a Dallas touchdown. It's the first time they've seen Thrill Hill, as they call him down here, all year long. Thrill Hill. He came back and played from his hamstring injury in San Francisco. Caught a touchdown pass there from Drew Pearson. But he is putting on a show in his first start tonight.
Well, they say you need big plays to win, Dandy, and we've seen a couple of big plays by Dorsett, Tony Hill. The Cowboys have reasserted themselves here.
For the conversion. Big plays here in Dallas tonight. And Dallas has moved on out. They lead 26-10. 63-yard touchdown pass on a third down situation.
All right, here it is, first down play. They fake the run to the line, which is intentional first down to run, of course. Gets good protection, not much rush. You watch Tony Hill here, made a good move, caught the ball, and then Rod Perry runs by him, misses the tackle. No way George Andrews is going to catch Will Hill.
Rod Perry actually knocks off the other defensive back.
Here's Perry on the coverage. Hill makes a good out move and beats Perry by more than Perry normally gets beat by.
And watch him knock Leroy Irvin off. And they're both down, and now it's
Tony Hill is one of those wide receivers. You have to respect him. That deep move, he turned Rod Perry around with that little inside. He thought he was going to do it.
Give Dallas opportunity. You destroy yourself. Second down and 3. There'll be a man wide open. Tony Hill. Okay, there it is. Danny White to Tony Dorsett. The old flea flicker. Dallas uses it all the time. Tony Hill with that great speed. Just flew by the defenders. So easy.
his first reception of the night.
In 2 minutes and 41 seconds, they have scored 2 touchdowns. They scored the first one in 21 seconds of the second half. The next one in the wake of an intercept caused by a rush by Ed Jones. This is the Dallas team if you give them a shot.
Well, you could say they make their own shots.
They do to a degree,
but
but
your quarterback's face, you're going to throw it apparently.
Buffalo sure helps.
Except again. How quickly the Cowboys have won up their 14 points to take a 21-14 lead.
This was almost a bad toss from Tony back to Danny White. You see, he went a little bit wide, Danny just shifted over. Frank called it. Tony Hill was way behind all of them.
We them boys.
Danny almost bobbled it. He had the big eyes. He knew Tony Hill was 5 yards behind any defender. We'll be back.
Again, now they'll get up there and just hurry up. I'm sure he called 2 plays. The quarterback sneak plus this one from the shotgun.
Clock running at 40 seconds left to play. Now the shotgun, and now the throw. Pass intended for Tony Hill. Touchdown, Dallas. Got it done quickly. Thrill Hill.
No one can do it better.
Thrill Hill, we all have the name.
No one can do it better. No one can do it better.
That was a great play by Danny White there. They called 2 plays. They had no timeouts left. The first one, the quarterback sneak to get the first down. The second one from the spread, and it was just that quick up into the back corner, Tony Hill.
That's right, Mr. Landry refuses to call it the shotgun, doesn't he?
No, he calls it the spread. He lets other people
No one can do it better.
Over the shoulder going away.
You can almost tell when they got that field goal a while ago, Pat, and got on the board, they say, well, okay, we're in it. Let's go. Second down and 6 from the 25. White checks the defense. Back to throw. Short drop, throws long, and it is Hill, and it is a touchdown. Tony Hill caught the ball over the defensive back, Eric Wright, and the Cowboys go on top. And what did Danny White see when he checked that San Francisco defense?
Well, I saw Tony Hill matched up one-on-one with the corner in a bump and run situation. So there wasn't much reading involved. There wasn't much to it. He brought back to throw it. And we'd done it so many times so often. It might be good blindfolded.
One pass and boom, the Cowboys go on top by the score of 9-7 with 2:49 remaining in the first quarter. All of that followed the fumble by Bill Ring just moments ago. Took them 50 seconds to get into the end zone after they recovered the fumble. Septian, who has been perfect all year, will try to make it 10-7. And he does. The Cowboys have the lead. They spotted the 49ers 7 points, and now Dallas is on top with
against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Cowboys scored 4 touchdowns, but lost their first opener since 1964, 36-28.
First that little thing Tom Landry did to the system went like that, you know? Yeah. Motion I've seen from him.
Not a question. That could be taken as a simple suggestion, but a warning.
Jay Sally's in the game now. White looks out to the left, goes to Pearson, he can throw.
But that was not the problem.
Tony Hill.
So are acknowledged. I don't follow him. I told it to another degree. And from the deep to the sea and grown like a tree and color is destruction. But there's a question. Complimented much, yeah, but never blushing. Hard like a criminal. Then I'm subliminal. In my own right, it's dope, cause I'm original. Unmistakable show. When the vocals are dirt, then you know. It's from a matter of setting the day tomorrow. Right? There's no complete orders, but wait, make sure you keep the facts in mind. Don't mess with the great, because the dagger like a nine with a voice. Telling you the realest direction. I'm talking murder, but that's another section I need to explain. By keeping my composure. Double jerking a sucker, plenty no joy. Nothing but a feeling, and that you're killing so easy fear. There ain't no need to spend your guts to a nut. No, I am not your equal, neither your equivalent. I'm all encompassing. You ain't together, so clever, know it yourself. Remember this forever. Knowledge is the key, and hard work is the feat. For me to be the great at the start and remain to be a threat. Till the opposition is born, taking the ball as a sword.
Cut the Washington lead at 23-10. And while it's quiet at the RFK faithful, the Redskin offense found itself falling back to earth. The Dallas attack was just as he played, and it was once again the wounds of the fleet Tony Hill which helped the Cowboys go.
I'm like, damn, another loser without an apology, so next time I'm a user. They get the message across.
Hill's 51-yard hookup from White was his second catch of a scoring bomb in the third quarter, and trimmed a once overwhelming Redskin lead to just 23-17. Hill would go on to lead Dallas in receiving yardage for the 6th straight season. And another look at his touchdown shows that Redskin quarterback Anthony Washington, number 24, had Hill in perfect
six coverage. The right pass was just a bit more perfect. Hill catches dropped like a bomb on Washington as the Redskins suddenly just folded up the thing. That's where we room. Third down. White this time has some time going deep. Has a touchdown to Tony Hill. Fell down, White hit the strike to Hill, and I'm not sure if we look at it again and if he wasn't juggling that ball going out of the end zone.
Watch it here again, right in the end zone. See Mark Haynes, he didn't get a good enough bump on him. Now he sits right there at the goal line, and Hill gets the ball. That is a tough one. That's a very close call. Because again, he has to have control of the ball in the end zone. I don't know if that left foot was in or not when he had control.
That's close. Nevertheless, it's 7-6 and Septien out of Toronto's hole will try to tie the score. Tony Hill put on a couple of good moves right at the line of scrimmage. Got away from Haynes. It's 7-7 with 3:41 left to play in the first quarter. All tied, the Giants and the Cowboys.
Here's where Tony Hill gets open right here on the line of scrimmage. He makes a little move right here on Mark Haynes and gets outside him right now. Then he gets up there. Of course, Haynes falls down. But the big move is initially. Watch him right here as he comes off the line. He gives him a little thing to the inside. Haynes goes inside. And watch him right up outside. Now he's even with him. Now he's beyond him. And of course, here's the catch. Does he have control? He looks like he does with his right foot. It looks like the right foot's in with control. I don't know if the left foot was in after he had control.
The thing is, he's back with this one. You can see why.
Well, everyone that ever plays the Cowboys, every week when we do a Cowboy game, we go, and I would say the number one thing we have to stop is Tony Dorsett. They got a lot of guys looking for him.
Newsom getting him a rest now. On second down, White back to throw, going deep. Tony Hill. Terry Jackson back there with him. Tony Hill will score for Dallas. Another one of those cases where the pass is underthrown. And it works to the advantage of the receiving team. They got him alone.
That's really man-to-man coverage all over the field. As you said, Tony Hill just stopped, came back, caught that ball. Watch, it will be out here to the left. Pretty good pass protection there. Warren Taylor got knocked down. As you see right here, Jackson's in pretty good position. His momentum carries him past Tony Hill. He stops, he'll make the move there and goes in for the touchdown.
Danny White's fifth touchdown pass of the day. That ties a club record, which was shared by Eddie LeBaron, John Meredith, and Craig Morton. 5 touchdown passes for Danny White. That's the end after the extra point, and it's Dallas 38. The Giants 20.
Dallas 20, Philadelphia 13, fourth quarter, 2 minutes remaining. Pat Summerall and John Madden at Veterans Stadium. The Eagles came out on fire. Dallas sort of looked at them and said, if that's the way it's going to be, we can do it too.
It's a screen pass. He's going to try and throw the screen pass to Dorsett. 33 out here. Watch him. He's out there. He's covered. He can't throw. So he said, okay, I'll scramble a little, look downfield, see what I have. Oh, there's a guy right there. Tony Hill, touchdown. Now, that's a heck of a play. When you call a screen pass in the huddle and you throw a touchdown in the end zone to another guy, that's good awareness.
Raphael Septien Mike Lieber at Jack Murphy Stadium in San Diego as we head into the final period. The Chargers leading the Cowboys 24-9. Dallas 3rd and 4 at the 35 of San Diego. Out of the shotgun, a lot of pressure. Tony Hill still in bounds. That's a touchdown. Yards on the touchdown.
This is really a nice play. Actually, the defender did a good job, but he didn't knock him down when he went for the ball. He went for the interception. See him drive for the interception, misses it. Tony does a nice job of staying inbound, heading upfield. Now he's going to start celebrating before he gets there. Look at this. You know, this guy has been scoring this year a touchdown every fourth pass he catches.
That's the rookie, Danny Walters from Arkansas, that he beat. That is White's second touchdown pass of the afternoon. Septien on to try the extra point.
Great example of good body balance on contact. Didn't knock him off balance. He regained it quickly, and up the sideline he goes.
Glenn Toronto, the Cowboys' forgotten man, the quarterback, will hold. Septien missed the first one, but drills this one through. And look out. Here come the Cowboys with 14:53 left to play in the game. It's San Diego by 8.
Cowboys shuffling a lot of offensive. Over at right guard. here it is again. Here's Eric Harris. He's the outside man. You see, he's starting to work inside, and that ball is zipped right where no one can do anything about it. Tom Landry on that. He says, finally, something good is going to happen. I'm going to jump up a little. I'll show you some emotion. You want emotion? There you some emotion. I'll give you a little bit.
That wasn't much of a jump.
For Tom, it was a good
Yeah, yes, it was. 70 yards, 6 plays. They kept it 51 seconds. Danny White.
Breaks a lot of running backs. And the Coach Dorsett at the head of the class. He's busted some good ones here today, but he is also, as you're very well aware if you've been with us from the outset, fumbled the ball to the Colts twice in the game. Stopping Dallas drive. Getting yards, but he's taking some hard hits in the attack. First and 10 Dallas. Danny White with a deep drop. Going long for the end zone. Touchdown. Tony Hill is in there for a Cowboy score. No play. 38 yards and a Dallas touchdown. He came back, the offense came back. You're right. And what this has been set up by are the short patterns run by the receivers. You see, Hill just flips the free safety and the cornerback, and in a foot race, the Indianapolis Colts defensive backs are not great speed people. Tony Hill is. Well thrown, too, by Danny White. He's thrown the ball with great finesse today, right on the money. He really has. Danny White having a big day, and finally the Cowboys crack the end zone. First touchdown reception of the year for Tony Hill, 38 yards out. Raphael Septien on that again, and the extra point fills it up and through until it's 9:53 to play in the first half. The Dallas Cowboys finally strike, going into the end zone from way out on the throw. The touchdown, Tony Hill.
Time on that game. So it's a late game, and John Madden and I will be there for the first section. Hogaboom is going to work on first down. Wide open is Tony Hill. Touchdown.
Well, you know, it was just a matter of time before they started to go to Tony Hill. He's the guy, as Tom Landry said, he's the guy on our offense that scares the defense. Watch a little play fake to the right, turn back, find Tony Hill running a post pattern, and he's wide open. No one around him. He can get open.
He knows how. Septien with Hogaboom holding. Gives Dallas the lead. 7-6. They went 30 yards and then one play. It took the Cowboys 5 seconds. They get on top of the scoreboard. 7-6. They lead with 5:11 left to play first half.
Cornerback. Ron Rust alternating those corners. Slip it in for a while, gets them in for a while, but both have had trouble covering the Cowboy receivers. Danny White, what did he say yesterday? He said, I'm going to play this game as if it's the very last game of my life. He said, this is serious. We've got to get this thing turned around. The Cowboys have responded to the tag. Third and goal tonight. Looking for 6. He's got it. Tony Hill. Only his third touchdown this year. Tony Hill on a perfect strike from Danny White. This will be a similar play to what Danny White just hit. The man in motion will come out here. Hill just goes up and breaks to the inside. Touchdown inside. Good release, gets inside of the defensive back. Fifth catch for Tony Hill. 1 yard for the top yardage maker for Dallas today. And Septien adds the extra point. Let's go go back and look at Tony Hill. Now, the first job he has to do is to get away from the brush on the line. Lippett is trying to keep him outside. Hill did a good job of giving him a little fake and breaking hard to the inside to make that play possible. A little double move. Outstanding play by Hill. Best coverage on that play by our cameraman. Tony Hill has been the top yardage man receiving the last 6 seasons for Dallas. Has 101 yards today and a touchdown at 17-3, and the pressure now on New England with 3:03 left in the third.
Well, Joe Gibbs said to us last night, it's too bad these games can't be 2 out of 3, but they're not. And it boils down to 1 quarter. First down. Going for Tony Hill, and he's got him. Touchdown!
Remaining in the game. The Dallas Cowboys with the football at the 35-yard line, or just shy of that, for 34. They have a first down and 10. They have 3 timeouts remaining. They have struggled all night offensively. They have fought valiantly defensively, as they have over the past 3 weeks. But the Miami defense has also reappeared tonight. Perhaps the lack of efficiency on the part of the Dallas offense could be more of a credit to the defense of Miami. First and 10. Danny White fires. Was he inbound? That's another Franco Harris. Down the sideline, Tony Hill. And what a stunning completion. Hill, not the intended receiver. Referee called it back. And they are going to bring it back, I believe, and that call, a courageous one by the official. He called it real late. His flag is on about the 25-yard line, 27-yard line. Much further downfield than the reception was made. He's in trouble. Dick Deed was the official, the side judge. He was right there in position to see what transpired. Stunning situation. Number 61, that's Dick Reed. He's the side judge. He'll try to work it out with Pat Haggerty. And here is referee. The ball was tipped. The player came back to the bound legally and caught the ball for a touchdown. Oh my God. 66-yard touchdown. Well, the official obviously didn't see the tip. He just knew the player is not allowed to go out of bounds and come in and catch the ball. Take a look. Intended receiver was, I can assure you, not Tony Hill. And here's the tip. And here's right there. Oh, that's amazing. Tony was just standing there. James Jones was the intended receiver. The ball tipped away, and there goes Tony Hill, and we are a conversion point away from a tie ball game. You know, they were playing a zone, and I can't understand how Tony could have got knocked out of bounds before that time. Well, he's back in bounds, and we're going for another time. Rafael Seppion to tie it up. Tied again with 1:47 remaining in the game. And Giants players, fans, staff, I hope you didn't leave early. Let's see them both again. Intended receiver is James Jones. Out of the way. The ball was actually thrown behind James. Not a good throw. It was tipped. John McNeil by McNeil, and he says, oh gosh, I should have had it. Look what I found. And McNeil's not even looking behind him. There's Tony Hill has got the ball. There's on the 50-yard line. Standing right there, number 80. Catches the ball clean. And just stay in bounds, Tony. Just stay in bounds. Why wouldn't you come to the middle of the field? You know this, Tony. Oh, I can't believe that. 1:47 remaining. The Dolphins have 3 timeouts. Tony Hill, he has made so many big plays over the years. Missed the first 5 games this season. Injured shoulder in our game earlier. Second game of the season against the Rams. The crowd noise in here is unbelievable.
The DOC is not a hood, not at all. Though I carry a weapon when I'm stepping, I'm not a murderer. Not in the sense of you're a custom. I fire with the sense of what's up and smoothly bust them. Opposition is taken, and that's a quote from the doc and the doctor. Cause yo, this ain't no joke. So if you smile, here's the outcome. Your teeth are gone, your mouth is numb. Don't get involved unless you're willing to risk murder by mic. Cause when they're ill and you gotta be weary, watchful, cautious, you'll be warned by Dre and how the project born. Capable in any and every control. I get heavy when introduced to a medley, such as the case before the bass started whomping. I had to hook up with the boys from Compton. Searched and found the sound, then accepted the job of making LA well respected. Of course with the help of a gang that's ruthless. Peace to the homies as I do this what I mean. It's MC Ren is in the house. Ice Cube definitely in the house. DJ Yella together go with the hoes. And Eazy-E is stupid chillin' cause he knows yo. No matter who's better, I'll be the dopest forever by kicking lyrics so clever that
no one can do it better. 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 No one can do it better.
Time is taken to dedicate peace to the homeboys. My homie Laylaw, MC Ren, Ice Cube, Eazy-E, DJ Yella, Fresh K, MC Smooth, my homie T-Lo, and of course, without a doubt, the one and only, my DJ Dr. D.R.E., most definitely in the house. Peace to those homies, and I'm out of here.
Very often on a Dallas Cowboy sideline, Tom. It might be good for him.
No one can do it better. No one can do it better. No one can do it better. Here he is, the poet.
bring a linebacker. They would love to get a running back trying to pass protect on him. Carl Cole comes in, wide receiver, rookie from Alabama State, number 81. The Cowboys very high on this juncture. He joins Tony Hill outside with Mike Renfro. You have to watch Gus Crosby down here, however, the big tight end. Left on again, White takes out of the pocket. Back to the end zone, all alone, Tony Hill. Back to the end zone, Tony Hill able to stay in bounds. Danny Whitehead brought the defense up with a roll to the right, and Tony was there all alone. But Danny White certainly did the job here. He bought the time by running right. He was trapped back there and found the open receiver. Just a good play on Danny's part and a good play on Tony's part. Good concentration by Hill. Comes down with the touchdown, and the Cowboys are out in front. Early going in the first quarter. Raphael Septien on for the conversion. Drive starting with a giant fumble. Joe Morris near the 44-yard line of the Giants. And the Cowboys convert the turnover. They lead 7-0 as Tony Hill, with his 44th career touchdown, puts the Cowboys out front. Principal Brad at the wide receiver, Tony Hill. All-time receiver and has led.
Schultz's man. No, let me tell you what happens. You get a read on a team like the Cowboys, play action. They get awfully, they just can't stand themselves. They've got to get in that end zone, Vern. They love play action. They had a read on them. They came out and they blitz. Schultz goes in down inside to pick up the end, and then the linebacker streak.
First sack of the day. It'll be second down. Full-man rush. Now a delayed rush from the linebacker. Here's Hill. 6 points.
Eason again, number 20, has Hill man-to-man, driving and drive. See the inside position by Eason? That's to protect the post. Hill did an excellent job of faking the corner route and then coming back underneath Eason to make the touchdown grab. Eason had the position that time, but he didn't stay outside. Kaysen, I mean. Where'd I come up with Eason?
Ricky Eastman. Eastman and Kaysen, a couple of free agent rookies are out there. That's understandable. They just play on different sides. Here's the kick from Septien. It's 10-7. Cowboys go 81 yards, 7 plays, 35 yards and a touchdown toss. Tony Hill from Danny White.
Strong as a rookie. You look at Freddie Joe Nunn as a rookie, and you look at Mickey Noga, guys in his second year. So they got a lot to build on here.
Third down and 2. Cowboys have been inside their opponent's 20-yard line 30 times, 11 times. They have come away without even getting a point. They have 5 interceptions, 3 fumbles. They've been stopped going down twice. Third and 2. Danny White fires into the end zone. Tony Hill, touchdown Dallas. And Danny White made a great effort to get that ball off. Look at the pressure on Danny White. Well, Tony just fights his way through Cedric Mack and finds the open spot here. Cedric didn't quite get to the ball. Leonard Smith was pressuring Danny White. Fairly good coverage by Mack, number 47. Good effort by both Danny White and Tony Hill. And the Cowboys put some points on the board with 56 seconds remaining in the first half. And here's Septien for the conversion. Dallas started this drive deep in their own territory. And it winds up an 8-yard touchdown pass. Danny White to Tony Hill. Tony Hill, who's having a great year. Into the night, 47 receptions. That was his 5th touchdown. Gives us a moment to show you action from around the league yesterday.
7 out there. That must be the 7 route, the corner route for Renfro. And he came back, looked at him all the way, and threw it to him.
First down, Dallas at the St. Louis 16. Cardinals leading it by 3, 17-14.
after it. Tony Hill, what? He's going to try to spike the ball. Cates is going to grab it and say, no, you're not. That's a great way to start a fight.
And we're tied at 27 on Tony Hill's first touchdown reception of the year. And Raphael Septien will try to give the Cowboys the lead again. Back and forth with it. With 1:18 remaining in the third quarter. Dallas leads again.
Tremendous speed. We saw one right before the end of the half where they threw him a little flare pass. They scissor blocked downfield the wide receivers, and it just about broke for a big one.
Cowboys at the 13-yard line. Both teams with impressive drives at the outset of period 3 from the 13. They throw up. Danny White lost it to the end zone. A handful for the touchdown. Tony Hill. And the Cardinals, who get to within 3, are now going to be back again by 10.
So many different dimensions to this offense. You can see why they came into the night having scored at least 30 or more points in each of their first 3 games. They've never done that in the history of the franchise, but they are explosive. A lot of it is number 34, Herschel Walker. You got to think Walker all the time he's out on the field, I believe. Tony Hill had coverage there by Lionel Washington, and the Cardinals again know that he is the man they're going to be after. They tried to help him with the linebacker. It just didn't work.
So Banks with that great run back to set him up, and then in 4 plays, in they go, and Raphael Septien continues to be perfect in 1986, both in field goals and in extra points. And there's Tony Hill, 62 consecutive games in which he has caught a pass.
And you can do so many things. Your little play-action fake to Herschel Walker, that rivets everyone. You try to double cover this man, Tony Hill. He beats the man he's been working on all night. They made it look just as easy as the Cardinals drive.
He and Crosby, of course, played together at Notre Dame, right? They know each other too well, maybe. 3rd down and 16. Work against each other all day long with the screen ball and the feet. Almost a little more room for a pass offense to operate in. White going for the corner. Tony Hill. Tony Hill just ran out a 20-yard touchdown reception for number 8. Super execution, Tom, of quarterback, wide receiver timing. Actually, Washington did a pretty nice job of physically covering Tony Hill, but the ball was put where he couldn't get to it with the receiver through. And no pressure on Danny White. He has so much time now, he could almost put his nails done before he throws it. Septien on the field. Leroy holds it. Boy, he's striking that ball. Here's Danny White, going to go straight back. See the rush starting to develop. Good spin technique going on inside. He has all the time he needs. Now the ball's going to be going to the left corner of your screen. And there he just broke for the flag at the last second. Touchdown. Tony Hill makes another great catch. 27-3.
Tony Hill is one of the most successful players in Cowboys history. He helped lead the Cowboys to 5 conference championship games in 6 years. He was explosive, clutch.
Tony Hill. Tony Hill will score for Dallas.
A deep threat assassin.
Staubach faces the blitz, has time, and goes deep for Tony Hill and got him touchdown Dallas.
And arguably the most talented receiver of those late 70s and early 80s teams. But just how good was he when we evaluate his career? In this video, I will do the most extensive research on Hill's career that you've ever seen. This video is going to shock some of you. What you thought you knew about Hill is going to change. Hill was selected out of Stanford in 1977 in the 3rd round and immediately made an impact on special teams. But outside of a few punts and kickoff returns, he hardly had playing time. It wasn't until the next season that Hill caught the league by storm. He had 823 yards and 6 touchdowns, which was 12th in the league. Not impressive, right? Well, those numbers are inflated. I'll prove it to you. Notice how Hill had 46 receptions that season. That was 28th in the league. 28th? Yup, 28. So I decided to research the top 28 receivers and receptions in 1978. And I was shocked. If we're just measuring Hill's valued production based on the opportunities that were given to him, he had over 800 yards with under 50 receptions. The only receivers who had more or similar yards based on receptions were Wesley Walker, Reggie Rucker, Neil Gray, Stanley Morgan, John Starworth, and James Lofton. Based on Hill's yards per reception that season, if he had caught just 12 or more receptions, that would have been enough for at least 4th in the league in yards that season, in just his first season starting. But of course he had to share with the legend Drew Pearson, who didn't have a bad season that year either. Now keep in mind, whenever I do these videos, I always look at value over stats. And here's what I mean. Sometimes raw stats can be inflated. A receiver can have a lot of yards because of a high number of targets or catches. On the other hand, sometimes a receiver can be unstoppable where the offense will just feed their guy over and over again during the season. So there will always be an argument on yards manipulation with receivers who have high target seasons. But here's where it's almost always inflated. When a receiver has a lot of yards on a few receptions, most likely, as I said before, receivers who have a lot of targets will generally have a lot of yards. But rarely do you ever see someone have low receptions but have a lot of yards, unless their production is elite too. For example, other than the ones that I already mentioned, I looked up receivers in 1978 who had catches ranging from 40 to 49. PFR counted 24 players. None of them had over 800 yards. This proves two of my points. 1. Receivers with low catches will typically have low yards. 2. Tony Hill's production or receptions had elite value, more than those receivers with a high number of targets and yards.
Motion, number 88. Drawback, play action fake. Looking for Tony Hill, he's wide open. That's down. Points, Tony Hill. Drawback, puts one up in the direction of Tony Hill. This should be 6. Tony Hill's second touchdown of the night. How do you like that? 9th of the season. And it comes from 75 yards out.
Excellence of the quarterback, the excellence of the receiver. It's the second time tonight that I've seen really a receiver wide open.
Receivers with a high amount of yards but low catches and targets most of the time mean one thing: he needs to be involved in the offense more because he is highly productive with fewer opportunities, which is exactly what happened the next season. In 1979, his receptions increased by 14, and just like we calculated the season prior, had Dallas given him at least 12 more receptions, he would have had a 1,000-yard season. Well, in 79, he had a 1,000-yard season because he did get those 12 or 14 receptions. Although PFR didn't calculate targets in the 70s or 80s, I think it's rational to believe that his yards and receptions increased because his targets increased. But here's what's interesting. His 60 receptions were outside of the top 10 just like the previous season. In fact, if we look at the top 10 receivers not counting Steve Largent because he had a monster season that year on just 66 receptions, Drew Pearson had a monster year as well. Had Pearson caught just 10 more receptions, he could have easily been in the top 5 in yards that season. Outside of those receivers, the same could be applied to Hill. With more receptions, Hill would have had a top 5 receiver value as well for the second season in a row.
The throw, he's a left-hander, wide open, Tony Hill, touchdown.
Hill picked up where he left off in the 1980 season.
17-0 in the second quarter. 8 minutes, 19 seconds left to play in the second quarter. A long pass. Tony Hill. He's got a touchdown for Tony Hill.
For consecutive seasons, he had 1,000 yards, which was the first time that a Cowboys receiver did it since the days of Bob Hayes in the 60s. But again, among those receivers, he had the lowest receptions but the highest yards per reception. If you look at the value of his production compared to the rest of his peers, Hill was a top 5 receiver in football for the 3rd straight season. He made the best out of what he was given. And in 1981, Hill was battling injuries that kept him out of 2 games and kept him from starting in 6 games.
Second down and 3. Play flicker. There'll be a man wide open. Tony Hill. Okay, there it is.
But ultimately, the same principle applied again. Outside of Stanley Morgan, Hill was the only receiver in the league with less than 50 receptions who had over 950 yards receiving. He was tied for 4th in the league in yards per reception with 20 yards per catch.
19-10. 5:30 remaining in the second quarter. on top. Tony Hill wide open. Oh, look out. Dropped out. Tony Hill's gone. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. 63-yard touchdown pass on a third down situation.
Not much rush. You watch Tony Hill here, made a good move, caught the ball, and then Rod Perry runs by him.
Although I wouldn't put his production at a top 5 value that season, still, 950 yards on less than 50 receptions shows how dominant he was. In fact, from 1982 to 1984, he only played in 32 games and started in just 28. Those 32 games are a difference in the 2-season stretch. In those 32 games, Hill had a combined 2,191 yards, which was still pretty impressive. That's basically 2 seasons with an average of almost 1,100 yards. Although not as productive as his previous seasons, Hill has some of his best games in that stretch.
Ball inside the 25-yard line. Play action by Danny White. Looking for the bomb to Tony Hill, and he'll be there. This is going to be 6 points for Tony Hill, and that's what the Dallas Cowboys were looking for. They are explosive, and they can come back from the shotgun. Danny White points to Tony Hill. One hand touchdown, Dallas. About a step. Ball had to be right there. That is amazing.
In '85, Hill led his most successful season in terms of stats.
Second down, 4. Newsom in motion. Flag is down. Free play for White. Caught by Tony Hill. If the play stands, Tony Hill has now set a single season record of 74 catches. He breaks the tie he had with Ron Springs. And that also is the 59th consecutive game in which he has caught a pass, breaking a tie he held with Drew Pearson.
It was Landry's last year having a playoff team, and Hill was a huge factor in that success. Now, let's get into something really interesting. I came up with an idea. Hill's best season was over 111 games, starting from the first game of his first season as a starter in 1978, which was stretched to 1985. Those were his prime seasons. How many yards did he gain in that stretch? And if I decided to look up other receivers of that decade and era and research their first 111 games starting from their first season as a starter going deep into their prime, where would Hill stack up? What I found was shocking. If you go on any website, look for the top 5 receivers of the 80s. I'm pretty sure these receivers will most likely be in the top 5. So I researched each of these wide receivers' first 111 games, starting from their first season as a starter. One of the requirements that I had was that the player had to play at least 5 years in the 80s, since Tony Hill played the majority of his career in the 80s. So I went and researched Tony Hill's 111 games from 1978 to 1985, and I was shocked. It wasn't because I didn't believe that he was good. Obviously, he was a great receiver, but I didn't know he was this good. Hill had 7,197 receiving yards. But let's go further. Comparing receivers who played between 1980 to 1985, Hill was the only receiver to have 5,000 yards or more while having under 330 receptions in that period. Wow. Hill was one of the most efficient and explosive receivers to ever play. From the moment that he stepped onto the football field, Hill was a bona fide star. He ended his career as the all-time leader in receptions and yards in Cowboys history. Along with Michael Irvin, he was the only receiver on the franchise to lead their team in yards for 7 consecutive seasons. Hill is one of the most underrated receivers in the history of the Dallas Cowboys franchise. And if no one else is it, I will. Thank you, Tony Hill, for all of the memories. You will forever be a Cowboy legend. Until next time, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. And as always, thanks for watching.
There have been Bob Hayes and Michael Irvin, Frank Clark, Des Bryant, even Amari Cooper and C.D. Lamb, and of course, Drew Pearson. Wide receiver legends past and present in the history of the Dallas Cowboys. And there is also, undoubtedly, Tony Hill.
The one thing I remember about Tony Hill is he was so competitive all the time.
I can't remember a game where he had a bad game. I can't remember a game where he's uncharacteristically missing passes. You know, he was just as solid as any receiver that we've ever had in Dallas Cowboys history.
Oh gosh, he was blessed. He was a blessed athlete.
Often overlooked among the pantheon of greats who played the position for America's team, Tony Hill is nonetheless a wide receiver who deserves recognition. A player whose statistics rank among and even lead his Cowboys peers.
He might have been one of the most consistent receivers in Cowboys history. He led them in receptions and receiving yards for 9 straight years. That's unprecedented.
I didn't want to be benched. I never enjoyed the idea of being benched, and that's kind of what set me aside. I think it was a drive, determination, and goal and attitude that just made me want to be the best.
Hill's road to the NFL began in Long Beach, California, where he grew up sharing the passion for the game with his father, Leroy.
My father was a huge football fan, and living in California, football started at 10 a.m. on Sundays, and then 1 o'clock the next game and 3 o'clock the next game. So we got abundance of football, and basically we just took it out to the backyard or to the park or in the streets, and essentially my love was the same love that he had. So it was been an ongoing relationship.
His dad was in the military, and I remember him pointing out, saying that, my dad would always say, if you're not out there to try to be the best, then why are you out there at all?
I always believed, and that was really my long-range goal, to be a professional football player. I was just fortunate I had a father that loved sports and a mom that required, the academic side piece of it, and so it was a dual scenario. So if I didn't fulfill one area, then I would be benched on the other area.
He was a star pitcher at famed Polytechnic High School, once striking out 18 batters in a game. But where Tony Hill really shined was at quarterback for the Jackrabbits, a program that also produced NFL stars like Deshaun Jackson, Juju Smith-Schuster, and Willie McGinnis.
They've had more professional football players than any high school in the country, and so I would say, I don't want to say we're a powerhouse, I just think we're an NFL factory. How about that?
Hill would soon move up the California coast, enrolling at Stanford, where he would make the switch to wide receiver.
Stanford coach Jack Christensen is blessed with one of the nation's leading receivers in Tony Hill. Hill caught 55 passes during the 75 season, gained more yards through pass receptions than any other back eight player, and turned 7 of those grabs into touchdowns. He appears destined to break all of Stanford's career pass and receiving records at a school where the pass is a way of life.
He would leave 4 years later with 140 career receptions, 2,225 receiving yards, and 18 touchdown catches, all of which school records at the time.
Quiet down a little bit, please.
The NFL now awaited. After taking Heisman Trophy winner Tony Dorsett with the 2nd overall pick in the 1977 NFL Draft, the Dallas Cowboys would later select Tony Hill in the 3rd round. He was ready, or so he thought.
Well, when I came in, I think I was the youngest guy in the NFL, so I was 20 years old when I was drafted by the Cowboys, and I talked way back, but I probably had a mispreconceived notion of what was supposed to be expected. When I came in with the thoughts of, I came in thinking I was going to be a starter. I think I was going to make a difference on the team, and of course I was humbled with that particular year.
The Dallas Cowboys Legends Show is presented by AT&T. Texas Lottery. Play the Dallas Cowboys scratch ticket today. It's your ticket for a chance to win big. And by NFL Game Pass. You'll never miss a game again. Enjoy full and condensed game replays from Week 1 to the Super Bowl.
Coming into the draft out of Stanford, he was injured that last year. So he ended up being a 3rd-round pick. And kind of getting to know Tony Hill later in his career, I'm sure that grinded on him. Like, I'm better than the 3rd-round pick. And he was pretty good at Stanford, by the way. As a matter of fact, ended up in the Stanford Sports Hall of Fame.
Not that it really mattered to the Cowboys in his first season of 1977. This was a team built for a championship with Pro Bowlers and even future Hall of Famers dotted throughout the lineup. It was a tough situation for a first-year player.
I was a California guy, you know. I come from a wide open liberal persona, you know, and you know I think I was one of those that had a different beach, you know. I was just pretty wide open, and I'm sure the guys would tell you that. And so to come to a conservative, stringent, well, I would say rigid coach because he was set in his ways, was a challenge.
To take 3 years to get into the lineup was not unusual at all. That probably meant he was right on track, and Tom would have said, if he was a Pro Bowler when he started in his 3rd year, Tom would have said, see, that's exactly what we believed would happen all along.
Surrounded by greatness, Hill played primarily on special teams as a rookie, returning punts and kickoffs, while recording only 2 catches for 21 yards on offense. But he was still a part of a team that would become a Super Bowl champion in 1977.
It was phenomenal. I'd never played in any bowl games whatsoever, for that matter, even being a championship. You know, Stanford, we were always bucking for 2nd and 3rd in my division over there, and so, you know, this was it was a dream come true.
He didn't play much his rookie year, but the 2nd year, he beats out Golden Richards along with Butch Johnson for the starting job. And I'm sure he probably thought, well, I should have had that the year before.
The bottom line is that, you know, I was with a bunch of legends, you know, and I was just rolling, you know, I was enjoying the wave. You know, it was one of those rides that you'll never forget. And coming to Dallas at that point in time, you just couldn't ask for anything better. Playing with your idol in terms of Roger Staubach, you know, that it was a phenomenal experience.
To say Hill's 2nd season was a breakout would be an understatement. He was named to his first Pro Bowl after he led the Cowboys with 823 receiving yards, helping Dallas to again reach the Super Bowl, where it would lose to the Pittsburgh Steelers.
I gave my 2nd ring to my dad because I thought, like, hey, you know what? We're going. You know, this is, you know, hey, Dad, you know, this is yours. Although it wasn't a winner, this is yours. You keep this because I'm going to be getting a few more. And I shared it with my dad. That must have been the omen because, you know, I gave you that last ring, and, you know, we went to 5 NFC championship games, and we should have won all of them, to be quite frank, you know, in my opinion. And as a result, you know, we never got back over that hurdle.
The 1979 season would see the Cowboys become the first team in NFL history to feature 2 1,000-yard receivers in Hill and Drew Pearson, as well as a 1,000-yard rusher in Tony Dorsett. For his effort, Hill would earn his 2nd Pro Bowl invite. The highlight of that 1979 effort, though, came in the regular season finale, a winner-take-all showdown against rival Washington.
The 79 Dallas-Washington game in December, for my money, still the best football game I've ever seen. So many Hall of Famers on the field, back and forth. The winner was going to win the division. The loser was running the risk of missing the playoffs, which is what happened to Washington.
He's gone to the 20, the 10, he's still on his feet, touchdown!
Cowboys fall behind 34-21, a little bit more than 6 minutes to go, and in typical Staubach fashion, he brings them back. They score a touchdown, get it within 1 score.
After Dallas defensive tackle Larry Cole stopped John Riggins behind the line of scrimmage on 3rd and 2, Washington was forced to punt. The Cowboys took over at their own 25-yard line with only 1 minute 46 seconds on the clock. No timeouts, down 34-28.
And Roger drives them all the way down to the field, and they get to the 8-yard line, 1st and goal. There's like 9 seconds to go, 8 seconds to go in the game.
The best part of that play is a story that I heard Staubach tell many, many years later. It wasn't the play Tom Landry sent in. Landry sent in a little post pass to the tight end, which he had sent in against Washington in Washington just a few weeks before, and Washington intercepted the ball in the end zone. And Landry was stubborn. He wanted that play again.
It was a 16 pass, and so I told Tony, I said, Tony, make a good fake inside and go to the corner. He said, no, he was just supposed to be out there, so he wasn't really into the play. It was more of a strong side play. I just told Tony as we broke the huddle, I said, Tony, make a good move on him and go to the outside. So if someone's dogging you, you have the fake inside and go to the outside. And so it worked out, and I did throw it. It was a good throw and a good catch. Yeah.
And he catches one over his head like this for the winning touchdown, which turned out to be the winning touchdown, and they win 35-34 and go into the playoffs.
You had the improbability of what they've done, the legend of Staubach throwing the pass to Tony Hill. It was really, it's still my favorite moment.
Well, today's Cowboys boast a pair of standout receivers in Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb. The greatest wideout tandem in franchise history was perhaps the dynamic duo of Tony Hill and Drew Pearson.
As a college guy, Cowboys was my favorite team. So, obviously you're watching Drew Pearson and Roger Staubach, and again you got your idol there. It's just a natural feel. If you're in high school, in college, and you're the receiver, you look for somebody to pattern yourself after. And Drew, fit in that category.
When you talked about Pearson and Hill, there literally weren't enough footballs to go around for wide receivers.
It was competitive between the two of us, hey, look, and I say competitive in a good way, from the standpoint that, we weren't wishing anybody any ill, like you don't get any passes, I don't get any passes. Is that, what are we going to do when we get those passes?
Competitive indeed. Some would even call it a rivalry between Hill and Pearson, albeit a friendly one.
I strive to get that number one position over there. And I was always concerned because I was behind Drew. And I told Drew one of those things that, again, this is youth, that the only reason he started in front of me is it's like when you're at Stanford, nobody was going to start in front of me. And essentially he said, hey, young buck, if you want a job, you better go on the other end. And essentially, Coach Landry moved me over there, and that was the best thing that ever happened.
Drew was on his way to being an all-decade performer, and the hierarchy was what it was.
Because he came in 77, and now you're taking opportunities away from me, but you're creating opportunities for yourself, but you're also at the same time making the team better. Because now we got more balance in the passing game, and everybody's not tilted to my side. So now when it's time to go to me, I might get the man coverage, and Tony's getting the double coverage over here.
Look, Pearson had earned the regard in which he was held by Tony Hill and other players. Hail Mary had happened, and they had begun to emerge as one of the real powers in the league, and Drew Pearson was one of the reasons why.
Their friendly competition even extended to off the field.
If anything that I tried to pattern myself off with Drew is how he dressed, man. Drew was what we say clean. Every time I saw Drew, every game, he upped my game in terms of from the standpoint of, I never dress like, I can't stand, I dress like this right here. Okay, with Drew's and 3Ps, tie, fro was looking good.
Tony Hill come to the locker room, 5 minutes before time to go out, he throws his stuff off, he's ready to go. But I had to get the wristbands right, I had to get the socks right, I had to make sure, look in the mirror, the afro, is it picked out, all that. Then I hit the field.
My deal was that, when I came in, I just had to slap everybody fine. Drew had to make sure everything was in place. Like I said, he was even fixing the fro before the game, and make sure that it sat outside the helmet really good. When I talk for most of our folks, they'll know that when the fro popped out in the back, the fro was looking kind of good. So, Drew brought all those qualities to the game. Had the wristbands, 2 or 3 on there. He was sharp.
Tony Hill didn't care. He didn't need it. I needed it. I had to fool him a little bit. I didn't have the size or the speed he had, so he would just throw his stuff on. I'm done. I'm good to go.
Of course, in the end, with Hill and Pearson pushing each other to succeed, it was the Cowboys' offense as a whole that benefited.
The reason there might have been more of a rivalry between Drew Pearson and Tony Hill is no matter how good of friends they were, the way the offense was spread around, there weren't going to be enough passes to make 2 wide receivers happy.
One big thing with Drew and I think it really may have made us a better receiver, but we're getting the ball thrown 4 or 5 times max in our direction. So, if it's close, you better catch it because you're not getting anything else, Drew and I would probably go to football heaven if we had to be in an opportunity that we get the ball thrown to us 10, 11, 12 times. I'm just throwing to us. And then catching X amount.
We never worried about who's the go-to guy. All those game-winning passes I never called myself the go-to guy. Because any play that was called in the offense or in a certain situation, when we broke that huddle, you might be the number 1 receiver. But if the defense changed or you go in motion or something, you're not the number 1 receiver again. So somebody else becomes that go-to guy, the number 1 guy.
He was a guy that when he threw the ball, he was going to catch it. There's no ifs, ands, and buts about it. Certainly, I want to pattern myself in the same direction. I didn't want to be a guy that just, make big plays and etc. I wanted to be a guy that was dependable. And you can most certainly say that Drew, and of course, I would say myself as well, we were extremely dependable. Drew, they called him Mr. Clutch, and that was the reason why.
Tony understood that, and that was the respect that he had for Drew as to why they were able to get along as well as they did.
With Danny White taking over at quarterback in 1980 and Drew Pearson later retiring after the 1983 season, Tony Hill became an even bigger part of the Cowboys offense.
Tony was our spark, especially going towards the mid-'80s. It's like he has figured all of it out, and that's saying a lot compared to a guy who came out of Stanford into the Cowboy organization playing good football as a rookie. So here it is, as we get into the 80s, to me, he was one of the more prolific wide receivers, not just for the Cowboys, but in the NFL because we depended on him so much.
In 1985, Tony hauled in 74 catches for 1,113 receiving yards, both career highs, to lead the Cowboys to the playoffs, the team's last postseason appearance under head coach Tom Landry.
1985, some people thought was Tom's best coaching job. They won the division, and they weren't nearly the team they had been, and they suffered the kinds of losses that good teams don't normally suffer. Tony Hill may have had statistics because they were behind and had to throw more than some others.
And that was kind of a weird season because, not only did they throw it a lot, but then they lost these games that it was like, well, what happened? They got wiped out by the Bears, who went on to win the Super Bowl that year. They got wiped out by Cincinnati, and yet they won the division.
He was the guy that we had to lean on. Dorsett was still running that ball. We still were doing well in the running game. But as far as the passing game was concerned, that was when they were kind of passing the torch. It went from Billy Joe Dupree to Cosby, to Doug Cosby, and it went from Drew Pearson to Tony Hill. That was Danny White's main targets, and you had Dorsett back there toting that rock. So we had a pretty well-balanced offense when Tony Hill was the catalyst.
It was a year that I got a lot of attention. I thought it was good. I'd been craving for that, especially when you go towards the twilight of your career. You don't want to just walk into the sunset. There's just no horizon for you to look at. And I was getting that opportunity.
Retiring after the 1986 season, Tony Hill spent his entire career with the Cowboys. He finished with 7,988 receiving yards, a team record at the time that still ranks third in franchise history. His 51 touchdown catches rank fifth all time.
If I look back at it, man, I probably could have played 3 or 4 more years. But you know what? I'm thankful for the things that I have.
Given his production, his value to the team over his decade of play, the question now for many is, does Tony Hill deserve to be in the Cowboys' Ring of Honor?
He had a really, really good career, and it was kind of an unsung career that I don't think people appreciated it.
He's a bad man. He should be in the Cowboys Ring of Honor, and his stats are better than mine. And I wouldn't be going to the Pro Football Hall of Fame if it wasn't for a guy like Hill being on the side.
I was there. I saw it. That's why I think he deserves to be in.
Had the Cowboys continued on that successful streak that they had going for those 20 years, I think we would have thought differently of Tony Hill because he was that good.
Well, the problem with Tony is when the Cowboys came in, when he came into the Cowboys, that was their Super Bowl years. And then as you think of Tony, as he finished out his career, that's not what you thought of in regards to the Dallas Cowboys themselves. So when you think of Ring of Honor, you think of guys who have been affiliated with championship seasons year in and year out. I think that's the only negative when it comes to Tony Hill not being into the Ring of Honor.
I don't know that it diminishes career, but it doesn't hold it up on a pedestal the way it should have.
I consider myself extremely blessed. I'm blessed at the career that I had. I'm blessed that I had a great family, I had great friends. I come to what I perceive as the number one organization in the country. I bleed silver and blue. Although I'd love to be on that Wall of Fame or the Ring of Honor, and again, perhaps that may come. But that's where I'm at. I can't ask for any more.
The Dallas Cowboys Legends Show was presented by AT&T. Texas Lottery. Play the Dallas Cowboys scratch ticket today. It's your ticket for a chance to win big. And by NFL Game Pass. You'll never miss a game again. Enjoy full and condensed game replays from Week 1 to the Super Bowl.